Now, the next thing I want to talk about, again, I was listening to this sports talk radio program today, and the topic of the VCU, and let me pull up the exact name, the VCU basketball coach Shaka Smart, who is a African descendant person. His campus, Virginia Commonwealth University, which is in Richmond, Virginia. Again, shout out to my peeps in Richmond that hear me when I call into WCLM 1450 AM. Big shout out to y'all through our media partners. But they actually didn't they make it to the Final Four or at least the Sweet 16. So I'm gonna share this article with you that came out on USA Today, and then I'll tell you how this is turned into controversy. Well, it erupted. It seemed to be a controversial topic on my local airways on a sports radio station. People saying that they don't like their sports coaches and stuff like these major programs, they just don't like them saying stuff about politics. Then they brought up Charles Barkley's comments about Mitt Romney at an NBA game, and saying, here's Barkley abusing his position as a network commentator and giving a pro-Obama message and attacking Romney. And so, they brought that up, and so it's like they want to go after this guy. Again, let me find his name, Shaka Smart. So let me read this article. President Obama has given political talks at more than 100 fundraisers this election cycle, but today he goes public. Campaign rallies at colleges in Ohio and Virginia, two key battleground states, are the first purely political events on Obama's re-election campaign. Now, here is a key thing in the argument that erupted. When I say argument, it wasn't like people shouting at each other or stuff, but people calling in, making counterpoint. And counterpoint was made to my comment that these people have a constitutional right. And Coach Shaka Smart co-hosted this event which was on campus. But the caller made the point saying that, well, they don't have freedom of speech. They don't have constitutional protections working for the private sector. And so at the time, as I stated at the beginning of the intro to this program tonight, I said, I didn't know if VCU was a public university or was it a private university, something like Duke University. Okay, that's a private institution. It's not public like UNC, University of North Carolina. And so I then found out that VCU is a public. So the point they were saying then, that only protects people who work in the public sector, like for government, like for the federal government or the state government, the post office, or employees of public universities. And so their First Amendment rights is protected. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. And, go back to Mitt Romney, didn't he say that corporations are people too? But, corporations are being treated with much better rights than some people. If you worked in the private sector, and I found a story, I don't remember all the details, but I'm going to, give you the gist of the story. But this guy was working for Goodwill Industries, and they, had a factory where they were sewing American flags or something, patriotic material. I think it was flags. They had a federal contract, and this was right after 9/11. And so, but this one guy, he was a socialist. He belonged to the Socialist Party of America or whatever the name, but he was identified as a socialist. And it wasn't that he was going around on the job trying to convert people to socialism, but he ran for mayor in the town that he lived in. And so, of course, as any politician would, he gave speeches and he talked about his views. One of the things they made sure to point out was his support of the Cuban Revolution. And, that's not the company line or the political correct thing to say or to make public here in America, which, is generally viewed as anti-Cuba or anti-anything that Castro had a hand to do with. And so this just really seemed unfair to me. Like, people could be punished for their political views and doing stuff outside of the job, but then corporations can donate unlimited funds. If, look at the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, they can give unlimited funds, which is what? Saying they got constitutional rights just like we do. But again, they seem to have a lot more rights than we do. I guess $1 million is what is worth $1 million of my dollars, right? I only got $1. The economic disparity, and so they got a greater say, greater influence over politicians than I do, because I can't give as much as they can. And then they hire lobbyists and all of this and lobby for law. So isn't that political expression? But they can fire, private corporations can be engaged in politics like that, and then fire their own employees for doing something outside of the job and supporting a political candidate or running for political office. I mean, if you want to really think about it, if you look back when they were openly, now they're still doing it, but back then they were openly denying black people the right under the Constitution to cast a ballot, to vote. Now, what was one of the ways that they could target black people? Oh, you better not participate in that civil rights march, or you might not have a job when you come back here Monday, Leroy or whatever. So that is a way for businesses to suppress the rights of the citizens because, they're employing the citizens. That's not right. You can't tell me that, that is a principle of freedom, that they can have control, corporations or people with money can have control. That's perverting. That's perverting democracy. And it happens all the time, but that doesn't mean it's supposed to work that way. And I'm one of those people that believe that you can do something about that. You can fight against it. You have to keep exposing evil when you see it, wrongdoing, criminal activity. And, now contrast that with CPI. But getting back to Shaka Smart though, his job is safe. Okay, because he's at a public university and it was sanctioned by the university, which I read in another article. Let me see if it mentions in this article. I don't think it does, but some other research that I did showed that they had gotten a grant. I want to say it was worth either hundreds of thousands of dollars or it could have been millions or more, but they're also like a research institute. And, they do medical research and other research there. And so through a federal government agency, they got a big giant grant. Now, you think you're going to get a federal grant from the government, you know what I'm saying? And then, you're not going to allow people, that work for the federal government to come speak, especially the president of the United States or anybody to have a fundraiser. But it also mentioned though that at this fundraiser that representatives of the Republican Party or people who support the Republicans will be also presenting a message. So that's not giving me a whole lot of information. I don't so but that's the story, and it just got me to thinking. But this company here called CPI Security, official sponsor of the North Carolina Panthers. So there's a business relationship right there. Its CEO, I don't know if he got convicted, but it was alleged that, you can only give so much as a person, as a candidate. And I don't know how he has his business structured that he can't, make unlimited donations, or maybe he wasn't making the donations. I don't think he was making the donations in his company's name. But another thing that they do is get all their employees, especially executives, to donate to a certain candidate's campaign. And so here you're using all of this power to influence politics and government and stuff like that. But then the court's going to tell us that they have a right to fire us if we engage in similar activity. That's not right. And we need to do something about it. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not a trained lawyer or anything like that, but I know there's some smart people out there, and y'all, need to address that issue. But this company, what the owner did was he was only allowed to give like what 4,500, something like that. Only a few $1,000s, and then you're maxed out. You can't donate no more to that candidate. And so what he did was got his employees to donate the money, and then he reimbursed them. And that's illegal according to campaign election rules. And in North Carolina, I don't know if it violates any federal rules, but there's a big investigation about it because there is a well-known Republican involved in it, because that's where the money was going to. Pat McCrory, a former mayor of Charlotte, who's for the second time since he stopped being Charlotte mayor. Now he's seeking to be the governor of North Carolina. He's very a shyster, what you might call, very shisty. Very shisty. Don't trust him whatsoever. He definitely down with ALEC. For those that don't know what ALEC is, but it's businesses who's come together under this non-profit education thing, and they have seminars and get in what you might call getaways or retreat for Republican lawmakers at all levels of the government. And they sit around there and they discuss policy and come up with legislation that these legislators then go introduce as laws into the various states and even through the federal government. And this is written by the businesses, by the corporation. So, we don't really have democracy. You want to criticize Cuba for whatever political system they're under and always want to hold up democracy. We don't have true democracy as I understand it, as what makes sense to me. We don't have that. We have fascism. And from what I understand, I could be incorrect, but from what I understand, that's a marriage between government and business. So, we're a fascist nation. We're not a Christian nation. We're a fascist nation. Under the one God that they trust is on the money, and that's their God, the money. That's the money. That's the God. That's their God. So, that's my views on it. I'll check the phone lines. I don't see anybody with their hand raised, that they want to comment. I think that's *6. *6, if you want to raise your hand. I think that's it. So you could try them all out if you want to comment, or you could just continue to listen. So yeah, that's the thing that I wanted to discuss, or the story I wanted to discuss as far as our constitutional rights on the job. Don't be fooled. Just like I've said before, the biggest con job in the history of America was pulled on Africans to believe that they was free, because they're not. And a lot of black people still think that slavery was over or abolished. It was never abolished. It's still legal through the Constitution, implemented through the criminal penal system, which are more commonly known as the prison plantations. So, business just running everything up in here, as they would say. And so we don't really have government for the people, by the people. We have, government run by corporations to exploit the people. I'm going to keep the music rolling. Of course, you're listening to Black Talk Radio News with Scotty Reed.